Welcome to the AI Corner. I'm your host, Mike Bailey, here to spotlight the people shaping New Zealand's AI future. In today's episode, we're speaking with Cowan Henderson. Cowan is the co-founder of Avocado AI, helping Kiwi businesses unlock real productivity gains through practical AI training. With a background in digital growth and change management, Cowan is focused on cutting through the hype of AI to make adoption simple, human, and impactful. Welcome to the pod, Cowan.
Thanks, mate. Good to be here.
Glad to have you here. What first pulled you into AI?
It's an interesting story, actually. So I've always been a curious person, naturally. I see something come out of the tech space or anything really, and I'm like, oh, what's that? How could that help? And actually, just to quickly tell a quick story, it started 10 years ago. So I was working at a civil construction firm, and I basically took the firm from a paper-based system to a paperless system. 15 iPads, pretty cutting-edge stuff. Spent 6 months building this, the process, the software, getting everything working. And then I rolled it out to site and I realized I'd done about 5% of the work. So 95% of the work is actually taking the people through the journey to understand why we're doing it and to sort of help them change the way they work. So when AI came in, into the market, I again got onto it pretty hot, started to understand it had real impact. The business I was working at just wasn't a priority for them at the time. So I thought, hey, there might be an opportunity here, because I could foresee that just like 10 years ago, this was a thing that was probably going to get shoved down people's throats, and there was probably going to be a lack of education.
Oh, so you've seen this journey before and thought, here we go. So
Yeah.
what were some of the learnings that you took from your previous experience that you've applied to the business that you've built today?
Oh, absolutely. So I guess that previous experience 10 years ago, it was a very much, I was sitting in the office designing this whole thing, and then I rolled it out, and there was no input from the people that were actually going to be the users. So that was my first mistake. I was young, I was trying to do a great job, but I didn't really think about the fact that you have to bring people along the journey, which is where our approach of going, hey, let's get into a business and slowly help them understand what AI is and how to use it, and actually get the people in the room to start building the ideas of how it's going to be used. That is imperative for adoption. If some tool or something is just slapped over people's heads and said, you've just got to use this now, well, your adoption rates are going to be pretty low.
Yeah, totally. And from
Yeah.
memory, you started off as a consultancy, but you've shifted into an education company. What drove that shift, and why do you think that distinction is important?
Yeah, cool. So this is like the journey of avocado is what I share with everyone, and it's kind of cool. So basically, when we started the business in April of last year, we looked at the other competitors in the market, and everyone was starting up these kind of AI consultancy offices, and we thought, cool, what we're going to do is we're going to come into businesses, and we did this for a few clients to start with, come into businesses and basically understand their businesses inside and out, go away, do a bunch of work, and then plug solutions or plug ideas of how they were going to use AI into the business. That was all good. And it was impactful, sure. But then 3 weeks later, they'd be ringing us with their next problem, going, hey, how do we solve this problem? So we're like, actually, man, we were keeping all the AI knowledge to ourselves and then just benefiting off plugging solutions, I guess. But actually, what we should be doing to protect humanity going forward is we need to be educating people, I guess, on this whole AI thing. So then we sort of flipped to being educators. And I really like the saying, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, which is, I guess, that was our consultancy approach, because we wanted them to come back and get more fish.
Mm.
And then we flipped to go, actually, why don't we just teach them how to fish and they can eat for a lifetime? So that's kind of our approach now, as we go in, go into businesses, and rather than telling them how they're going to use AI, we educate them first. And then the people within the business start to build that log of how they're going to use AI. So that's kind of the real world application of it. What we were finding was, when we were back in the sort of the consultancy mode, yes, we'd suggest all these amazing use cases and everything like that, but then a whole bunch of other great ideas would come out once people started using it. So why not bring people along that journey to start with?
It's like building a garden. We just need to sprinkle some seeds and start to water that garden, help them water
Yep.
their own garden, right? And eventually they'll
Yep.
come up with their own ideas, because the hardest part around AI I've found is everyone wants to go like, what is the prompt you put in, or what tool do you use? And after a while you go, that's not really the important piece here, but that's the first kind of 10% of the journey that most people struggle with when they first get their hands on the tool.
Yeah, exactly.
What exactly does Avocado AI offer?
Yeah, cool. So three different things, I guess. So we've got two different facilitated programs that we offer. One is for leaders. and one is for teams. And then the third thing that we've got is our online learning platform, which is a self-serve. It's reflective of our in-person offering, but it's a self-serve kind of learning program. So typically the way we would work with a business, depending on the size, is we might take the leaders through a cohort, and then we might take a pilot group, a team through the cohort. And it's really important in that team cohort that it's a good representation of all areas of the business, because that's when the magic happens, when you start breaking down barriers and different divisions start working together on custom GPTs that are going to serve several different purposes, things like that. And then typically once those core teams are trained, we'll then roll out access to our online learning platform for everyone else, which is just far more cost effective. So yeah, we've got our facilitated route. We've got 3 facilitators here in Christchurch. We're about to start training some in Auckland, which is exciting. And then we've got our sort of, online self-serve platform, which is good for anyone, really good for job seekers, good for entrepreneurs, really good for scaling across large orgs, that kind of thing. Yeah.
How does it work? Because a lot of what I've seen is that unless the leadership team is aligned and speaks the same sort of shared language when it comes to this technology, no matter what you do for the rest of the business, with training, with tools, with whatever, setting up AI councils, working groups, etc., unless that leadership team is aligned, then it often falls apart. So is there a strong recommendation from yourselves that for any organization to be successful, they should kick off with the leadership facilitation? Is that the
Yeah.
process you guide folks on?
It's an absolute must. And in fact, if we talk to a business and they're like, oh, nah, our leaders just aren't that interested, then they're not our client yet. They're not curious enough.
Right.
So we're looking for businesses whose leaders are curious, whose leaders are sort of empathetic. But the interesting thing when it comes to leaders, right, is it's not just about learning AI. You've actually got to change the culture in your business. And one of the first things is you've got to lead visibly. So you've got to talk about your own use of AI, chatting around the water cooler, bringing in those cool moments. You've actually got to create some psychological safety as well. So you have to foster an environment where you can have sort of no blame trials and experimentation, so safe to fail environment, because that's how people learn in AI, right? You've got to have time set aside to encourage playing with AI. It's not just all
Mm,
about work, work, work. It's about like learning to work with AI is almost like learning to work with a new colleague really well. You've got to start
mm,
to understand AI in order to work it well. The other thing is we want to work with leaders that understand that yes, there's an investment in the tool and there's an investment in the software and the stuff like that, but there's also a large investment required in upskilling your team.
mm,
So it's that kind of stuff, right? So the mindset needed for really great AI adoption, and this starts top down, is basically a curious, critical, and creative mindset. And the
mm.
culture has to be open, safe, and iterative. So that's kind of what we talk about. And we have turned clients away where their leaders just aren't there yet.
Fair enough. Fair
You
enough.
know?
And
Mm.
what happens when you get into these leadership kind of working groups and you see resistance from some of these? I know what you're saying around you don't want to engage ideally with those groups where there is resistance, but I'm going to imagine that
Yep.
not everything's rainbows, right? Not everyone's on board
Yep.
from day one, and there might be 8 people out of 10 who are on board and two naysayers. Like, how do you manage that?
Oh, that's our favorite. We love that, right? Like it's all smooth sailing when everyone is on board, but there's usually always a critic or two in every group. And in fact, for example, when we start with a new business and we might have the leaders in a group of people, we actually ask for 1 or 2 of those cynics to be in that group because it's actually important. Like it's important to have that cynical, critical attitude when it comes to AI.
Mm,
And what happens when you throw a couple of those people into the group is that, the really positive people will be sort of charging ahead, doing really cool things. And slowly that sort of cynical, I guess, approach starts to get broken down a little bit when those people start to realize the value AI can bring. But on the flip side, it's important to have those people in there because they're the ones that think even further about, hey, should we be putting this into AI? Let's quickly check the policy. So having a team with a wide, I guess, different views of AI is actually really great for the process.
interesting.
Mm,
And
mm.
out of interest, like, a lot of what we see with this education space is you've got some folks who are helping to build strategy and roadmap and building a vision and a purpose for the business. But then you're talking a lot about mindset shift. Do you think those two necessarily go hand in hand, or does mindset shift come as a first step before you even start to think about the roadmap and the vision and how it applies to the business specifically?
Yeah, wow. Well, this is an interesting thing, eh? For example, I often have discussions with leaders who are like, hey, larger businesses, hey, our board have told us to go out and try 2 or 3 different AI tools, and then report back on which ones we're going to use in our business. Well, we say that's a bit like sending people to test drive cars that can't drive, right? Same with even shaping an AI policy or a strategy, right? How are you meant to sit there as a leader in a business and go, okay, on my plate is to shape our AI roadmap. How are we going to do that? But it's really hard to do that unless you're educated. So quite often there's a two-step process here. We'll come in almost pretty much at the beginning of a client's journey in AI, deliver the education, and then the step after that is like, right, we now understand AI. We now know the potentials. We now know the new working constraints. We now know everything that it could potentially do for us. And then it's like, cool, now we're educated enough to build that strategy and figure out what the next 3 years looks like. A lot of people are going into this really blind, and it just comes down to the education piece.
Totally.
Or they become over reliant on external partners, I guess, rather than sort of building up the know-how and the ability in-house.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And what's the most common aha moment you see within these sessions with people? Like, does it change from time to time, or have you got a magic trick that you always bring out?
Oh, I mean, it does change time to time. To be honest, like in our very first session, and this kind of shows where we're at in New Zealand, right? In our very first session, we talk about prompt building blocks. So we talk about, hey, the way to make a great prompt, you've got your task, you've got your role, context, limitations, format, and the most important one, reasoning. I think that's one of the biggest wow moments because it instantly helps people's outputs, you know? And then I think the other wow moment is simply people realizing that it's actually really easy once you've got the sort of prompting basics down and you understand how to drive AI, it's really easy and quick to make custom GPTs. So I think one of our biggest wow moments is our first custom GPT session, which is about 5 sessions in. And it's just amazing seeing what people will go away and innovate and build just in that short week before the next session. So I think people talk about, oh, I want a piece of AI software. I've got to pay a software development company $500,000, blah, 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 whatever it is. But when people realize that actually you can do a lot of this stuff with custom GPTs yourself, and they're actually really easy to build, I think that's a big wow moment.
Yeah, when you start stitching together what a manual workflow looks like today with different custom GPTs dotted in between,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're skating pretty quickly by that point, which is awesome to
Oh,
see
absolutely.
like that
Yeah.
unlock. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the great thing is, right, is that these people have the skills and ability to continually
Mm.
create more tools as they go along, even once we're done with them.
And I mean,
Mm.
you're at the coalface of AI education. Like, where do you think we are today compared to where we were 6 months ago? Like, how has the change in discourse
Mm.
and conversation evolved over time?
It's interesting. I think more and more people are aware that this is actually a thing. I think there was a big attitude maybe a year ago that, oh, we'll just sort of sit back and we'll wait and we'll see what others are doing and this might blow over. Maybe it's not going to be that beneficial. I've had leaders in the past tell me it's a phase. And I'm like, mate, this is the biggest thing since the industrial revolution of the internet, but that's all good. I think now though the conversations are more people have got a slightly more open mind. And I think that's just because there's more and more and more and more like good stories out there of what people are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very evident in the
Mm.
social media nowadays, and
Mm.
people always want to know what their colleagues are doing and how they're doing it faster or better or stronger. So it makes tons of sense. So
Yeah.
zooming out for a sec. So you start
Mm.
off with the mindset shift, then people get confidence so they can start moving into the vision or the roadmap and strategy for their business. Then it's about getting their team on board, and then there's also the hands-on and the capabilities around the specific tools themselves. Like, what
Mm.
are some of those other foundational skills when learning to use ChatGPT that are really important once they've kind of knocked over those first blocks? I mean, you mentioned prompting is a big one, custom GPTs. Like, in your mind, is that the 80/20 of it?
I think those two things are the sort of the crux of it. But then I think something that's really important is making it a habit.
Mm,
Because we often see in the first few sessions, people will learn things and then they'll go away and they might try a couple of ideas, once or twice throughout the week, and then they'll bring them back. But I think as the course goes on, you start to see people leaning on AI more as a habit. And that just comes from an understanding of when and where you can. So I think there's the prompting, which is super important. That's how you talk to AI to get what you want.
mm,
Then there's the custom GPTs for repeatable tasks or or different ways of thinking or whatever. We've even got a bunch of clients that are now forward facing their custom GPTs to their customers to make processes easier, which is really cool.
Awesome.
And then I think there's the habits of it, which is the important part. So like honestly, I'm a couple of years into using AI, and I wouldn't like half of my clients are far better than me, to be fair, but I'm always spotting new ways to utilize it in what I do because I've got that habitual routine of thinking, okay, I've got this problem. Could AI help me to solve it? So I think making that habit stick is probably one of the other most important things. Yeah.
Yeah, as you say, if you're not uncovering new things every day and how to use AI, I don't think people are critically assessing what ways they can improve. Like, and
Yeah.
a lot of the features that get rolled out that make AI even more powerful, like projects not long ago
Hmm.
had the ability to add in custom instructions per project, which was
Yep.
really neat, and specific
Yep.
files within projects themselves and knowledge within projects to inform those other conversation threads. Like all those little bits and pieces just make life so much easier when you start layering them together like Lego blocks.
Exactly. And that's the thing with these tools, right? Is that these tools just keep adding these new features, but most people, and it's funny, this is a really strange metaphor to use, but cats, right? So do you have a cat, Mike?
Not at the moment, but I have had in the past.
You have had it. So cats are super curious, right? So if you come into a cat space and you put something new in the space, whether it's a box, whether it's a whatever, whether it's a shoe, most cats are going to be curious enough to go and have a look. So it's the same attitude when it comes to AI, ChatGPT, for example. Oh, there's a new button. I better have a look at that and see whether that is going to help me. A lot of people, especially before they start training with us, they haven't used the different models. They haven't
Right.
used projects. They haven't even tried to use a public custom GPT. So there's all these little things. Even it's funny, Mike, one of the things that we I always come back to this because it's always such a shocker. But one of the things we mentioned in our very first lesson is Shift Enter does a line break in ChatGPT. And at the moment, I'd say 75% of people we teach, that's like a really, oh my goodness, that's so great moment. But it's all
Right.
these little things that
Wow.
you pick up along the way that help tweak everything, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
Mm,
fascinating. That's the other piece is like Shift Enter is a common keyboard. It's not even a shortcut. I mean, maybe it is, but you can do that in any tool. But as you say,
mm.
people probably don't instinctively realize I can apply that within AI and it's going to make a difference to my,
Well,
you know?
actually, another interesting thing, I had a chat with a guy yesterday, and he was talking about how when you start with a business, you're given your Outlook login, you're given your calendar login, but no one teaches you how to use it really efficiently.
Yeah.
So the majority of people in business in New Zealand have a terrible email habits and terrible calendar habits, and therefore they have stress and anxiety because of it, right? Because
Mm.
it's just all the little things. So this is another tool a bit like that. So something we're really careful of is helping people understand all the little things that are just going to help them on the day to day.
I spoke to a client the other day and they said, we've had Copilot rolled out within our business, but no one told us Copilot was there. We haven't had an email from Microsoft. Maybe they had, maybe an automated one, but they haven't had
Mm,
anyone get in touch. They haven't had someone from the IT department or any department for that matter, people, culture, their own leaders
mm.
say, hey, this is how you get hold of it and use it. So I think you're right. It gets sort of baked into their existing stack and it just sort of gets left to die. And unless people are curious enough or have self-taught themselves, then it's going to die on the vine pretty quickly for these organizations. And
Exactly. And if you think about the makeup of people in any organization, there's probably 5% of people that are naturally curious and that are naturally going on. And quite often that's our way into the bigger businesses, is that there'll be one person that's picked it up from the beginning. They are the ones that are kind of the internal AI champion. And when you have a look at their mindset and their personality, they're usually curious people that have always got their fingers in a lot of things.
yeah,
But that's not everyone.
yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Awesome. Hey, well, a lot of organizations in New Zealand have Copilot, and just alluding
Mhm.
to it just then. You're training a lot of people on ChatGPT. How do you marry those together? Because I mean, I know, Copilot models are OpenAI's models at the end of the day, but the UI and the UX is very
Mm.
different. So how do you apply just principles across AI in general, or are you specifically dialed into ChatGPT? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, sure. So we did a little experiment a year ago with one of our large clients, and I know Copilot has come a long way since then, but we did a little experiment a year ago where we basically trained one group in Copilot, one group in ChatGPT, and out of that experiment, 95% of the staff are running with ChatGPT, not Copilot, simply because, we view it as a bit of a Swiss Army knife, can do a lot of different things. And if we bring it back to our core purpose, which is educating people and getting people from here to here with
Mm,
their understanding of AI. It's just simply an easier learning journey on ChatGPT.
right.
And that is simply the number one reason why we use it as the learning platform. So for us, our goal wasn't necessarily to teach people how to use ChatGPT really well, it's to teach people how to interact with AI really well. So a
Right.
lot of our clients will do our course and then they'll go off and they'll apply those skills to the other AI models
Right.
because we've kind of inserted that slightly different mindset of being curious and trying that button or being critical about what it's saying. So all of those foundational skills are what people need, regardless of what the tool looks like, you know?
Yeah. Makes complete
Yeah.
sense. Once you master
Mm,
one, you can begin to master the others pretty quickly with
exactly.
look and feel. So,
Yeah.
if you want to talk us through what does one of your 12-week training programs actually look like?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing we do before we start is we help the business refine their AI policy. And this is actually an interesting little segue. The AI policy stays fluid throughout the training, simply because people are putting together these AI policies without understanding the value versus risk, right? Or the
Mm,
reward versus risk. So to start with, it's all scary, which is totally normal. And then as we go through and the leaders start to understand, oh my goodness, I had no idea AI could do this, all of a sudden that risk, which is probably much smaller than all the other holes and risks you've got in your business anyway, because we all know the biggest risk in your business is actually your people and how they use these tools. You know, you
mm,
can send the wrong email or click on the wrong link. So whatever, we help them set that up to start with. Then the first couple of sessions, we basically educate everyone on that policy, help them really understand what can and can't go in, and just get everyone off the ground with basic prompting. So that's sort of the prompt building blocks, helping people understand how to frame their prompts. Then we do a couple of sessions on advanced, what we call advanced prompting, and that's when you're moving away from summarizing documents into thought partnership, strategic partnership, scenario planning, all of that stuff where you're actually starting to use AI as an intelligence rather than sort of a reformatter, which is where most people are stuck in.
mm.
So that's the first four sessions. And then you're basically qualified to start building custom GPTs. So we then spend 4 sessions building custom GPTs. Now, we think everyone should understand the basics of building a custom GPT, even if in a large organization, an AI champion group is formed who is then responsible for taking ideas and building them. How is everyone else meant to submit ideas if they don't understand how the back end works? So we spend a good 4 sessions on that. And then we actually have a really cool session called AI for Everyday Life. This one is really important for the adoption journey because if you can get people understanding how they can use AI to make their home life better or easier or whatever, or more entertaining or whatever the outcome is there, then they're going to naturally start having that mindset of leaning on it in their workplace.
Mm.
Then we do a bit of a recap, and then we talk about, right, cool. So we've all learned how to use AI here. How can we take it to the next level and use it as a team? Are there some ways that various different departments can tap into each other? We've got a client, for example, a large engineering firm, and they were just having meetings for the sake of meetings just to gather information and knowledge. So partway through our course, they started building these knowledge bases for each department that the other departments can tap into,
Mm.
so that kind of thing. So that's essentially, yeah, what the 12-week course looks like.
Awesome. That's super robust. And I'm assuming
Mm.
you do a bit of measurement as well, like pre-course and post-course, and you see what the uplift is and sentiment.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, it's a hard thing, right? So we have the attitude of, I guess, our clients are willing to invest to test. Funnily enough, this is my first BD role in 12 years where we don't talk about an ROI because that's not the attitude, right? The attitude is upskill your people and then you'll find out what kind of comes out the other end.
Hmm.
We basically run a before and after survey to get a bit of an idea, but it's not just about hours saved, it's about how people feel. That's actually what's important.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, about 40 to 50% of our initial survey results often say that people are quite scared of AI, which
Mm.
is great. But, as humans, we're scared of stuff we don't understand, right? So part of our course is helping people understand what it is. And then we do a measurement afterwards as well. And it does come down to hours saved. That at the end of the day, for a business, they want to see efficiencies. But it is also really cool to see the cultural changes too.
Good on you. And what are some of the really surprising use cases that you've seen some businesses come up with that they can solve with ChatGPT today that kind of blew you away?
Oh man, countless. Let's pick finance first. So, one of our finance clients built custom GPTs to basically stress test their applications before they sent them off to the banks.
Awesome.
That is a huge application because if you can increase your success rate with the banks, then things just go smoother, basically.
Mm.
There's that one. Countless, all of our construction clients end up building custom GPTs to access all the various building codes, which is really cool. We've got a plumber client that actually, this is really cool. So he's a small plumber. He's a young buck, been going about 2 years, really good business, loved the course. And he's built a custom GPT to help his apprentices because he was getting sick of phone calls every 30 seconds from the apprentices on site, right? So basically, he developed all of the SOPs for different jobs, built a custom GPT. And then what the apprentice can do is the apprentice can literally go to site, bring up that custom GPT, turn the video on and go, what's the SOP for this job? Step me through it. And Aaron, the fella, said that literally it's amazing because they can get the information they need from that on the go.
That's impressive.
So that one's pretty cool. Yeah, I could go on for a while. And this is the cool thing, right? Is as we're working with all of these businesses, we're gathering all of this data per industry of the use cases and the custom GPTs, things like that. Yeah.
That's super cool. Out of interest, how advanced or automated are these custom GPTs that folks are building? Like, are they dropping in the file as part of the knowledge base, or are they setting up an automation through a make or an NA10 and it's actually calling the live regulation, for example, for the different building codes? Like, how advanced is it and how much maintenance is required on the side of the customer?
I think it really depends on the customer and the skills that they've got internally. We've certainly had a few that have sort of realized that, hey, you can actually use ChatGPT as a coach to step you through this automation stuff. So they've taken things a step further internally.
Awesome.
Quite a few of our clients, it's just the sort of stock standard attaching knowledge bases, things like that. And then for those clients that don't necessarily have the skills internally to do automation, then we would then sort of refer them to that next step.
Wicked. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you've cracked a great corner of the market and it's desperately needed. What's next for Avocado AI and what do you see as being your role as part of this journey for New Zealand as part of building AI capabilities?
So I think next immediate step for Avocado AI is to get some feet on the ground up in Auckland and down south. But I think where we really want, so it's interesting, right? As we've been going through this journey, we started going, okay, we're going to help people in business. And then we realized actually this education doesn't just apply to people in business, it applies to people in universities, in high school, and primary school. Heck, look what Europe's doing from the age of 3 to help protect their kids against the loss of critical thinking skills, So I think next year, my role and where Avocado wants to go is to start helping shape some of that education as well at all levels, right? Because this is a human thing. It's not just a business thing. I've got some big concerns around kids. This is social media all over again. If we don't educate parents and teachers on the dangers of loss of critical thinking skills, things like that, then we're going to be in a world of trouble in 10 years' time. So I think there's some real opportunity for us to have a bit of a voice in those areas. So yeah, that's kind of basically we want to educate people to, I guess, protect as much as we can of our minds and our critical thinking skills going forward. And that's literally from day dot, 3-4 years old when they pick up an iPad, all the way up to business,
Awesome. I love the vision there. Good on you.
Mm.
And I suppose just before we finish up, you up for a quick fire round before we say goodbye?
Sure.
Awesome. All right. This is probably an obvious one, but ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
ChatGPT.
Most overhyped AI trend right now?
Oh, fast.
There's so many.
Everything's overhyped, man.
Yeah, surely it's something in agents. Yeah.
Yeah.
One New Zealand company that's quietly doing some great AI work that many people might not be aware of.
Oh, if people don't know Black Harkness from Main Power, I think that's one to look up. He's done some amazing work in there, straight out of uni, straight into Main Power, done a whole bunch of transformation. I'm always talking about him. He's great.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
Love it, mate. And what's your number one recommendation for people to get started in AI? Like, what's that first step when they open up chatgpt.com and want to get started? What do you say?
Well, I think that's the first step. Is to get in there, right? And then to be honest, I guess the first step would be to educate yourself, right? To either do some looking online on how to prompt correctly or jump on our first free lesson online or do things like that and really just start trying it for everything and start understanding its outputs. To be fair, one thing I'll quickly say is, and this is a hot tip, it's really good to ask AI how it arrived at an answer. So remember in school, you'd have to show your reasoning for maths, and the reason being is so that the teacher can spot where you went wrong. So you're the teacher in this scenario. You're asking ChatGPT for something. If you ask it to show its reasoning, you can spot, oh, right, that's what it thought because I didn't tell it X, Y, Z. And you start to learn as to where it's getting things wrong if you get the wrong answers.
Love it. That's a great tangible one for people to understand how these things work. Well, thank you, Cowan, for joining us today, and thank you to our listeners. Please subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes and to hear more from the people building New Zealand's AI future. Until next time, thanks for tuning into the AI Corner.